Around the world, it's time to praise the Lord. Praise the Lord covers the major Christian events in America and across the world, from the heart of Europe to the tip of Africa. Praise the Lord. From the centers of Asia to Central and South America,
you're a part of the world's largest prayer and praise gathering. Joining us from Miami, Florida are author, songwriter, and singer Tammy Trent, author and entrepreneur Dan Miller, international teacher and minister Bishop Corletta Vaughn, author and senior pastor of St. Paul's Missionary Baptist Church, Pastor John Gunn, ministering in music, recording artist Doreen Vale, ready to take your calls, prayer partners from around America. Now your host, international recording artist, Alvin.
The guest tonight that I'm about to introduce, I think this is his first time being on the Praise program, but he is a man that is known throughout the nation and perhaps throughout the world. An incredibly unique gifting that he has. My wife and I have determined the last few years and for the rest of our life, we want to spend the rest of our life empowering people to be the best that they can. And I've told my testimony probably many times. You know, the last 15 years I've been singing and screaming at churches. But prior to that, I had 16 jobs in 15 years, and I failed at every last one of them. And I'm surprised she stayed with me, but thank God she did. And but I couldn't seem to get my life together. I couldn't seem to find out. And I was in church and I loved God and did all the things that I thought I was supposed to do as a Christian. But I couldn't get my life together. And when I heard this young man on the radio for the first time last year, he really said something that really quickened my spirit, but also something that I think that every person, especially those who are in the body of Christ, but every single individual needs to hear, because there are a lot of people that on the inside, there's something that is not connecting. You love God, but you spend so much time at a job and at different places, and it's not making you happy. Well, this man has written a book called 48 Days to the Work You Love. And he is the author of this great book. He is also the president of the Business Source. Would you welcome Dan Miller to the Praise the Lord program?
Thank you, brother.
I am so glad you're here. I saw you in the hotel and I almost talked your ear off, so I apologize.
That was great.
You and your beautiful wife, Joanne. I'm just so honored that you would be here tonight.
Well, thank you.
You have a wealth of information. I have read your books. Not only have I read your books, I've given your books out. So you need to make me a commissioned salesman.
I'll do that. I'd be happy to.
But I want to start this off because this book, which they'll show it, 48 Days to the Work You Love. This book, it really talks about and suggests that there are something very wrong with the way that people approach their work. We were talking earlier, and I find that in the church, out of the church, there are a lot of people that are doing all the right things seemingly in their lives, in their spiritual lives, but there's something wrong. Mm-hmm. And I heard a preacher say years ago that inspiration without expression leads to depression. And there are a lot of people that are spiritually depressed,
that's right,
maybe emotionally depressed, and don't know why. And I see this book as an answer to a lot of those problems. Something's very wrong. What's wrong with the way that we approach our work life today?
Well, work has changed. There's no question about that. I mean, it's very volatile. Companies are coming and going. Jobs come and go. We can't stop that. But there ought to be in us a sense of continuity. And a lot of people have never really discovered that. They just go to the job. It's easy to slide in church on Sunday and sit there and be part of what's happening there, and people identify you as a Christian. But what I really want to know is, what are you doing Monday morning? Monday morning is where you have that expression to what your spirituality means. And without that, there's a vacuum, there's a void. The one thing that we spend the most time doing during the course of the week ought to be the most focused opportunity for ministry in our lives. And yet sometimes we just kind of ignore that. You know, sure, I'm a Christian, that's on the weekend, but then the rest of the week, that's just my work. We miss the best opportunity that God gives us for creative expression of how He's gifted us, positioned us, and prepared us. 85% of the process of having a confidence of proper direction in our work comes from looking inward first. 85%. 15% is the application, and yet most people choose work by looking at the paper and see who's hiring, or Uncle Harry's hiring down at the plant. That's a terrible way to choose what we're going to spend the most of our time doing. And so we miss that. We have a lot of generational expectations, and we expect each generation to be better educated and to move up socioeconomically. Well, what happens with the baby boomers, where some of them had incredible financial success? How does the son or the daughter of a brain surgeon who may be gifted as a carpenter get to express that? Can we embrace that, or are we going to superimpose, no, you have to do something that exceeds what mom and dad did in terms of academically and economically? And that's a recipe for disaster. I see primarily professionals, attorneys, physicians, dentists, CPAs, people like that, who are saying, I'm not sure I'm on the right track. Even though they've invested a lot of time and energy in a particular academic focus, they're saying, I'm not sure I'm on the right track. You know the biggest two groups of professionals that I see who are asking those questions?
Who's that?
Dentists and pastors.
No, really?
Oh, yeah. Who are saying, I'm living out somebody else's expectations. And the challenge is we often equate those things. We have an artificial split between what we see as secular and spiritual. The Bible doesn't have these kind of splits, but we do as a culture. So if we're going to have a spiritual calling or something where God really gave us a mission, then obviously we're going to be a pastor, teacher, evangelist. That's a horrible plan.
Right.
It short circuits the real God-given gifts that a lot of people have. We all are called to ministry, but we have different vehicles for how to live that out. I had a client in my office just recently, 44 years old. One of the first things he said was, Dan, I'm tired of living my life made by the decisions made by an 18-year-old. And I thought, well, that's a neat way to put it. And really, a lot of times at 17 or 18, a person chooses a career direction, sometimes with no more forethought than they put more time into planning where they're going to go on spring break than when they choose their major, and yet it sets the course of their life. But with what you're talking about, this is an ongoing journey. It's not a one-time decision. I would not have been positioned or prepared at 25 to be a life coach. It took some time to get to that point. So we have to welcome the thought that it's an ongoing development.
Not only have I gotten the book, but I also get your Easy newsletter, and it says, don't ask me what kind of work I do. How does that phraseology go? Ask me what? You remember
Ask
that?
me who I am. Ask me what kind of a person I'm becoming. It's that. Ask me what kind of a person I'm becoming. And yet, in our culture, we meet somewhere and it's, hi, Alvin, I'm Dan. The next question, what do you do?
Yeah.
And we make conclusions about that person's intelligence, education, income, value to society, all those things. And what do you do? No. Who are you? Who are you becoming? Who you're becoming is much more important than what you're getting, and yet we have to frame that differently. So work, in as much as I want people to have meaningful, fulfilling work, we still want to see it as simply one tool for a successful life. It's one tool. You ought to be making deposits of success in other areas of your life, spiritually, financially, socially, physically, personal development. All of those things are legitimate areas for making deposits of success. So if you enjoy riding motorcycles, that's fine, but that's different from trying to turn that into the thing that you spend most of your time doing and turn it into an income-producing focus of your life.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you for allowing God to use you to touch the lives of millions of people, of which I am just one. But thank you so much, Dan.
Well, thank you. And I've been blessed by your music for years.
Man, that means a lot to me, coming from you. That means a lot. Dan Miller. 48 days to the work you love.